Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third day of OG Quest 2021. And I'm extremely happy that the first 2 days went off without much glitches. In spite of the inclement weather yesterday in Chennai, we could maintain reasonable connectivity, and the quiz which went on yesterday evening also went out successfully. I'm sure you're looking for results, and I'm not going to announce the results, and the results will be announced a little later when we have a little more gathering. And the first session for the day today will be taken over, and the host team today, who will be the anchor for the day, will be Dr. Usha Rani's team, ably supported by Dr. Shamla, Dr. Mrinalini, and Dr. Satya. So over to the host team, who will be anchoring you for the whole day, to Dr. Shamla and Mrinalini and Satya. Over to you guys to start the first session and go on.
Good afternoon, one and all the best PGs. And today we welcome you for the day 3 of our Mind OG Quest. Now we start a day with our eclampsia drill, which is a most common scenario in our labor room. So we have our OG2 team headed by Professor Usha Rani. Ma'am is an extremely skillful obstetrician and gynecologist, and she is the head of the Endoscopy Society. And we have our associate professor, Professor Shamla ma'am. She has dedicated herself towards the patient-oriented care. Ma'am is a very soft-spoken and too friendly professor. And we have our assistant professor, Dr. Satya, and me, Dr. Mrinalini, for the eclampsia drill. Now over to you, Shamla ma'am.
Thank you, Mrinalini. So welcome to the drill. Today's drill is on eclampsia. So what is eclampsia? How do you diagnose eclampsia? So eclampsia is the development of convulsions or unexplained coma during pregnancy or intrapartum period or postpartum period with the signs and symptoms of preeclampsia. So the dictum or the rule 1 is convulsions developed during pregnancy to be considered as eclampsia. So coming to the incidence in India. So what is the incidence in India? It's around 0.17 to 3.7%. And 12% of the maternal deaths are due to hypertension and its related complications according to the WHO. What are the types of eclampsia? All of you know it's antepartum, intrapartum, and postpartum. The commonest one we come across is the antepartum eclampsia. So how do you manage eclampsia? We will be like a stepwise management. First, we'll start with the general management, that is stabilizing the patient. And second step is the management of the convulsions. And the third step is management of the hypertension. And the fourth step is obstetric management. You have people, so you can divide them into teams, 4 teams, and each team will be assigned one job. So if you don't have teams, you are alone, or you have only 1 or 2 persons along with you, you can manage the eclampsia like stepwise manage. Start with general management and control convulsions, followed by control of hypertension. Then later you can deliver the patient. And the first team and the first step in managing eclampsia is it includes patient care, resuscitation of the patient, and monitoring the vitals. So any patient, whenever you are resuscitating, what you look is look at the ABCs. What is ABC? It's airway, breathing, and circulation. So whenever you are resuscitating the patient, first thing is call for help. So then start resuscitating. First, place the patient in left lateral position in a cot with side railings, and insert a padded tongue depressor or airway and start sucking the secretions to avoid aspiration. Then start the oxygen by a mask at a rate of 8 to 10 liters per minute. Then start recording the vitals, including blood pressure, pulse rate, respiratory rate, and oxygen saturation. Check the lung for the lung bases and crepitations. And if you have a facility to do an ABC, do an ABC. So next thing is C stands for circulation. Insert a 18 gauge IV cannula and draw blood for investigation. And catheterize the bladder and do urine analysis, check for urine albumin. And once you put the Venflon, start giving IV fluids very slowly, not more than 80 ml per hour or 1 ml per kg per hour. So keep a strict fluid intake and output chart. Meanwhile, you inform the anesthetist, inform the senior obstetrician, neonatologist, and operation theatre. And after stabilizing the patient, you start counseling the responsible relatives. So next step is by the second team or second step of management of eclampsia is starting the anticonvulsants. The drug of choice for convulsions during pregnancies is magnesium sulfate. And the two regimens we follow are either Juspans or Pritchard's regimen. In Juspans regimen, we start the loading dose 4 to 6 grams and 20% IV over a period of 15 to 20 minutes. And the maintenance dose we give 1 to 2 grams per hour IV infusion for 24 hours after the last convulsion or the delivery. So how to start the magnesium sulfate in Juspans? So how to start Juspans resin? So this magnesium sulfate is available as 1 ampules and it contains 2 ml and it is 50% and it contains 1 gram. So 1 ampule is equivalent to 1 gram and is contained in 2 ml. It is available as 50%. So for the loading dose, you have to dilute. So how to dilute them? Take 4 ampules, that is 4 grams. It's of 50%. Dilute in 8 ml of, So take the 8 ml of magnesium sulfate, dilute in 12 ml of normal saline or distilled water. Make it 20 ml and give slow IV over a period of 20 minutes. So we remember the rule of 20, that is 20 ml of 20% magnesium sulfate, we give over a period of 20 minutes. So 4 grams of 50% of magnesium sulfate, that is 8 ml, dilute with 12 ml of normal saline or distilled water. Make it 20 ml of 20% of magnesium sulfate, give it over a period of 20 minutes. So once you are given the loading dose of magnesium sulfate in Juspans resin, so we maintain the magnesium sulfate as a maintenance dose. How to give the maintenance dose? So here we give the maintenance dose as 1 to 2 grams per hour. For that, we have to take 10 ampules of 10 ampules of magnesium sulfate, that is so 10 grams, and we dilute in 500 ml of normal saline and we give a rate of 50 to 100 ml per hour. That's around 12 drops per minute. So once if you are sometimes we prefer Pritchard's resin. So both the resins are equally they're equally good to control the convulsions. So in Pritchard's resin, what we give is along with the IV dose, we give the intramuscular dose. So how intravenous dose, we dilute as per the Juspans resin and give over a period of 20 minutes. Immediately we will follow with intramuscular dose that we give 10 grams of magnesium sulfate, that is around 50%, and we give 5 grams in each button. So how to load this? We take 2 10 ml syringes and draw 5 ampules of magnesium sulfate in each syringe. Add 1 ml of 2% xylocaine or lignocaine in each syringe. So why we are adding xylocaine is to reduce the pain and give this injection deep intramuscular in each buttocks. So Pritchard's resin includes intravenous as well as intramuscular route. Even if the convulsions are persisting after Pritchard's resin or the Juspans resin, we give one bolus dose, that is 2 grams of 20% of magnesium sulfate over a period of 15 minutes. How to give this bolus? Take 1 10 ml syringe, draw 2 ampules of magnesium sulfate and dilute in 6 ml of normal saline and give over a period of 5 to 15 minutes. So once the loading dose is given for the Pritchard's regimen, we'll give the maintenance dose. How to give the maintenance dose for the Pritchard's regimen? So that maintenance dose we give is the 5 grams of 50% of magnesium sulfate intramuscular 4th hourly in alternate buttocks. So for this we take 1 10 ml syringe, draw 5 ampules of magnesium sulfate, add 1 ml of 2% xylocaine, give deep intramuscular 4th hourly on alternate buttocks. And the site we prefer is outer and upper quadrant. And then this will be continued 24 hours after the last convulsion or delivery, whichever is later. So whenever you're giving the magnesium sulfate, we have to monitor, apart from the vitals, we have to monitor the other 3 parameters. What are the 3 parameters we will do to know the toxicity of the magnesium? One is deep tendon reflex, the other one is urine output, and third one is respiratory rate. So whenever these 3 parameters are becoming abnormal, like a knee jerk is absent or the urine output is less than 20 ml per hour and the respiratory is less than 12 breaths per minute, you suspect magnesium sulfate toxicity. So how to check the magnesium sulfate toxicity? If you have the facilities to do the serum magnesium, you can do the serum magnesium levels. So the therapeutic range is for the serum magnesium is 4 to 7 milliequivalents or 4.5 to 7 milligrams per deciliter or 2 to 3 millimoles per liter. So they'll be presenting with the symptoms like flushing, headache, lethargy, drowsiness, diminished deep tendon reflexes. So when the magnesium levels are reaching 7 to 12 milliequivalents, then they will be absent of knee jerk. They can have somnolence, hypocalcemia, absent deep tendon reflexes, hypotension, bradycardia, or ECG changes. When the magnesium levels are 12 to 15 milliequivalents, they can develop respiratory arrest. They can have muscle paralysis, respiratory failure, and they can proceed cardiac prolapse. So when the magnesium levels are exceeding 15 milliequivalents, they can have cardiac arrest. So whenever you are seeing the abnormal parameters like reduced urine output, absent of tendon reflex and the reduced respiratory rate, then you stop the magnesium sulfate and give an antidote. So what is the antidote for magnesium sulfate? It's a calcium gluconate. Here we follow the rule of 10. So what is this rule of 10? We give 1 gram of calcium gluconate, give 10 ml, 10% solution over a period of 10 minutes. That is 10 ml, 10% over a period of 10 minutes for the antidote. Sometimes we encounter special circumstances like impaired renal function or nil urine output. So what should we do? To give or not to give the loading dose? Loading dose can be given in case of impaired renal function or nil urine output. So only the maintenance dose has to be lowered or to stop depending upon the values of serum creatinine or the urine output. When the serum creatinine levels are 1.5 more than 1 milligrams per deciliter or the urine output is coming to less than 20 ml per hour, recheck the magnesium levels in 6 hours. The serum creatinine is 1 to 1 milligrams per deciliter and the urine output is adequate. Reduce the maintenance infusion by 0.5 to 1 gram per hour and recheck the magnesium levels in 6 hours. The maximum dose we can give is 20 grams for 48 hours for severe renal efficiency. That is 20 grams for over a period of 48 hours for severe renal insufficiency. So if the convulsions are not controlled with magnesium sulfate, the patient is allergic to magnesium sulfate or some contraindications for magnesium sulfate, what are the other alternatives we have? We have injection Levipil, that is levetiracetam. We can give loading dose 500 milligrams to 1000 milligrams IV. And we can continue this injection Levipil maintenance dose as 500 to 1500 milligrams IV. If the patient is stabilized, you can give the oral tablet twice or thrice daily. And the maximum dose we can give is 3000 milligrams per day. So the other alternative we have is the injection fosphenytoin. The loading dose we can give is 15 to 20 milligrams phenytoin sodium equivalent per kg and intravenously at the rate of 100 to 150 milligrams per minute. The maintenance dose we can continue for the fosphenytoin is 4 to 6 milligrams per kg per day. Sometimes the patient will be, to sedate her, we can give the injection midazolam. So the loading dose we can give for midazolam is 1 to 2.5 milligrams slow IV every 2 minutes. And the maintenance dose we can increase 25% on the initial dose. The maximum dose we can give is 2.5 milligrams per dose. So don't give diazepam. Even we don't recommend diazepam. And once the patient is stabilized with anticonvulsions and antihypertensives, and you are planning for delivery, immediate delivery, shift the patient to OT, or the patient is a postpartum patient, you can shift the patient to ICU or the HD unit for further management. So the third step in managing eclampsia, and the third team will be ready with antihypertensive drugs. The first line therapy we have is the intravenous Levitrol. So injection Levitrol is available as 1 ampule, and that is equivalent to 20 milligrams in 4 ml. Why we are preferring this injection Levitrol is it is effective and safe and rapid onset of action. And the BP fall begins within 5 to 10 minutes. And the action lasts for 3 to 6 hours. Once you are given the injection Levitrol it has to be maintained with the maintaining dose. So how to give this loading dose? We give loading dose 20 milligrams. It is equivalent to 4 ml IV over a period of 2 minutes and recheck the BP after 10 minutes. Your target BP should be 135 to 85 millimeters of mercury or less. If the BP is still elevated, we can repeat the injection labetalol by doubling the dose 20 milligrams, 40 milligrams, 80 milligrams. And the maximum cumulative dose we can give is 220 milligrams. So once you are given the loading dose, you can start the maintenance dose and you can shift the patient to OT or ICU. So how to start the maintenance dose? Here we can start the maintenance dose, either infusion pump dose or the syringe drive. In the infusion pump, what we have to do is draw the labetalol 200 milligrams, that is 40 ml, that is 10 ampoules, diluted. It should be diluted with 60 ml of normal saline. So how to dilute? We'll have the 100 ml normal saline bags. We remove the 40 ml of normal saline, add the 40 ml of the drug, that is levodopa, and make it 100 ml. So now we have the drug of 200 milligrams in 100 ml normal saline, that is 2 milligrams per ml normal saline. So start the infusion at the rate of 10 ml per hour, that is 20 milligrams per hour. So how to titrate? When the BP is elevated, you can double the dose. If the BP is maintained under control, you can maintain the same dose. If the BP is very well controlled, you can have half the infusion every 30 minutes to a maximum dose of 80 ml per hour, that is 160 milligrams per hour. So sometimes we don't have infusion pump. What we can do is we can load the drug in the syringe drive infusion. Here we don't dilute. So we start the infusion at 4 ml per hour, that is 20 milligrams per hour, and the maximum dose we can give is 32 ml per hour, that is 160 milligrams per hour. And discontinue by weaning over 1 to 2 hours. Initially, we'll do the continuous monitoring of the vitals. And once the patient is stabilized, we monitor the vitals every 15 minutes, followed by hourly as and when required. And the other line of drugs we have is the nifedipine, that is 10 to 20 milligrams orally, and it can be repeated in 30 minutes, and the onset of action is 10 minutes. The maximum dose we can give is 240 milligrams per 20 hours, and the maintenance dose we will repeat every 4 to 6 hours. So sometimes the patient will be unconscious. We can't give the nifedipine orally. We can powder it and give it through a Ryle's tube. And sublingual nifedipine should not be used. So other alternatives we have is the hydralazine. That is, we can give 5 mg IV every 30 minutes, and the onset of action is 10 minutes. Maximum dose we can give is 30 milligrams IV, and maintenance we can give 10 milligrams per hour. So whenever the patient is shifted to ICU for the control of hypertension, what they give is nitroglycerin. We don't give in labor room and all. That nitroglycerin has to be given in the ICU. They start at the infusion of 5 to micrograms per minute, and they gradually increase every 3 to 5 minutes to the maximum of 100 micrograms per minute, and the onset of action is half to 5 minutes. So we stabilized, and we started anticonvulsions, and we started antihypertension. The fourth step and the fourth team will be ready with the delivery. So fourth team went to do an immediate delivery. When there are maternal and fetal complications, we do immediate delivery. So till now we didn't check the fetal heart. Now we start checking the fetal heart. Check the fetal heart, and the patient is hemodynamically stable, and you don't see the fetal heart, and the fetal heart is absent and hemodynamically stable. Then you can induce the patient, do an ARM and augment with syntocinon, and aim for a vaginal delivery. If the fetal heart is present and there's fetal distress, then you go for a stat section. If the fetal heart is present, patient is in labor, and the patient is stable, you can do an ARM and augment with oxytocin. Sometimes we have a dilemma, and the patient is not in labor, and depending upon the gestational age, we have to take the decision. So more than 32 weeks, good Bishop score, no fetal and maternal complication, you can do an ARM and augment with syntocinon. With less than 32 weeks and low Bishop score and fetal compromise, maternal and fetal complications, you go for a cesarean delivery. Direct C-section, we go for a maternal complications, unconscious patients, fetal heart abnormalities, and obstetric indications. We go for a straight C-section. So role of furosemide, when there is an uncontrolled BP, to reduce the afterload, we give the furosemide. And in case of pulmonary edema, we give the furosemide. Sometimes the patient will have nil urine output. How to differentiate renal from the renal cause of failure? Nil urine output. When the urinary to plasma creatinine ratio is more than 40, it is pre-renal failure. Less than 20, it is renal failure. And urinary to plasma osmolarity is more than 1.5, it is pre-renal failure. Less than 1.5 is renal failure. And spot urinary sodium is less than 20 milliequivalents, it's pre-renal failure, and more than 40 milliequivalents is renal failure. Elevation of 1 is pre-renal, and elevated serum creatinine is renal failure. And 1 to creatinine ratio more than 20 in pre-renal failure, and the ratio is less than normal range 10 to 20, it will be the renal failure. In case of pre-renal cause of polyuria, don't give diuretics. So the investigation we send for eclamptic patient is in the violet container containing EDTA, we set the complete blood profile including the peripheral spinal. And the red container will send LFT, RFT, electrolytes and serum uric acid. And the plain container will send fibrinogen and serum LDH. And the sodium citrate containing blue container will send the coagulation profile. And the ash container containing the base of sodium fluoride will send the blood sugars. And red container will send the cross-match sample. And urine we check the albumin. If there are signs of toxicity, we send the serum magnesium in the plain container. So all the labor rooms and the casualties should be equipped with an eclampsia kit. So at least 2 trays we should keep, one containing oxygen mask, airway suction tube, catheter trays like Polis 1416, gauze, urometer, syringes, jelly for lubrication and dipstick, and the IV tray containing Venflon 1618, IV sets, alcohol swab, IV fluid, sterile gloves, syringe infusion pump, and intubation tray. And the drug tray, it should contain magnesium sulfate minimum 15 ampules, that is 50%, syringes 20 ml, 10 ml, and 5 ml. Antidote calcium gluconate, injection labetalol, nifedipine, hydrogen, other drugs, emergency drugs like Decadron, furosemide, hydrocortisone, soda bicarb, and dextrose. Crash card should contain the life-saving drugs like dopamine, dobutamine, and MTZ, Jalacard, adrenaline, and atropine, and Ederer. So these are the trays. We have a small video demonstration of eclampsia drill. So we'll move on to the video. To the management of eclampsia in the labor room or in the ER. So there are 4 steps involved in the management of the eclampsia. The first step is the general management, second step is the control of convulsions, and the third step is the control of hypertension, and the 4 steps involve obstetric management and delivery. Coming to the first step, that is general management. What do you do in the general management? So whenever a patient is brought to the casualty or in the labor room, whenever the patient is throwing convulsions, what you have to do, the first step is keep the patient in a cot and put in the left lateral position, tilt the head to one side, and maintain the airway, breathing, and circulation. For airway, you put a airway and do the suction and remove all the secretions to avoid aspiration. And keep the oxygen mask and start oxygen at a rate of 6 to 10 liters per minute. For the circulation, start with Venflon, preferably 18 gauge Venflon, and collect the blood for blood investigation. The blood investigation